Hello, this is Rabbi Pearl. I'm speaking to you from Chabad of Mineola, and in honor and in memory of my dear father's yahrzeit, which is on Pesach Sheni, the second Passover, marking 14 years since the passing of my dear father, Reb Zayda Moshe ben Alta Osher Anshel. I'd like to first share with you a thought, as my father was a Holocaust survivor. I'd like to first focus on the fact that his parents and many of his siblings died in Auschwitz, were cremated, sent up the chimney, and that is where is their cemetery. And when my father passed away, we actually attached the names of all the families who had died there, so they have a monument to their memory. But I'd like to focus a little bit on the Hebrew word for cemetery. The Hebrew vernacular in our language gives us three distinct paradoxical names for a cemetery: a Beis HaKvaros, a home for burial; Beis HaChaim, a home of eternity; and also another term called Beis HaChaim, which means a home for the living. Now, why do we need these three diverse names for a cemetery? You know, all things must pass, none of life's strings can last. So what's the significance behind these three conflicting names that we use in Jewish tradition to describe a cemetery? A Beis HaKvaros, a house of graves; a Beis Olam, an eternal home; or a Beis HaChaim, a house of life. And what I'd like to share with you this evening is that these three names reflect three perspectives on life and death. A home for burial, for eternity, or for living, represents three ways in which we can interpret death. These three interpretations are symptoms of how we interpret life. The way we define life is the way we define death. If we define life as exclusively a physical experience, an opportunity to maintain, to nurture, to gratify our material and physical selves, if life is merely about tending to our appetites, our bodies, then passing, that's the end of it. It constitutes the end of life. Therefore, the cemetery then is a home for burial. A life has sadly reached its final chapter, and as Yogi Berra would say, it ain't over till it's over, but in the cemetery, it's over. So that's one way of looking at life. If a person's life is physical concludes, so the person would be going to a Beis HaKvaros, a house of graves where the body's laid to rest. But there's really another possible perspective on the meaning of life. If we see life as a spiritual one, in addition to the physical one, if life is also about nurturing and nourishing our souls, our spiritual identity, our inner spark of God, then passing is not really an end of life. It's just continues on some other place. Obviously, there is the pain of the passing, but the end of one's existence, not at all. Because if life also included our spiritual side, the soul never dies. It continues to live, love and feel in another dimension, on a spiritual one, that we cannot grasp with our own seeing and hearing of this world. But the neshama, which is a fragment, a chelik alakami mal mamish, it's a part of the Almighty, is not subjected to death, only travels from one world to another. So from that perspective, life and death, then a cemetery is a home of eternity. The body is interred, but the soul remains eternal. And that would be explained the second definition of a cemetery. But there is something even greater we can achieve. If we, those who are left behind, use the passion, the values of our loved ones who are not here with us, to inspire and affect our lives daily with our behavior, then the cemetery becomes a home for the living. Surely the individual passed on is laid to rest. Surely the individual who passed on, the soul continues to live on up there in the heavenly spheres. But what about the people left behind? By inspiring and touching the daily lives and choices of their children, the students, the friends, the relatives, the communities, they're in some way very real, in a sense still alive. Their own dreams and ideals continue to exist in a very tangible way. In the earthly lives of the people touched, by their love and their goodness. So these are three ways of remembering. What is a yahrzeit? What is Yizkor? What is it to remember? To begin, of course, it's about remembering our loved ones who've been taken from us. But how we choose to remember them. Will we just give them once again on a yahrzeit a hello, a heartfelt hello and goodbye, expressing how much we miss them and how much our void is still palatable? Will we pay tribute to the soul? Wow, that a great soul, eternally lodged in heaven, linking ourselves with the divine aspect of our loved ones who never dies? Or will we, in some small way, genuinely bring back those loved ones back to life? Why? By continuing their dreams, their commitments in our own physical and earthly daily lives. Of course, it's not a choice of either or. All three are really appropriate and authentic. Each of these descriptions have their own place in the majestic and tragic pathways of each of us. So today I remember my father. And the question is now, with the year 2013, we must ask ourselves, as I indeed ask myself, will we allow Auschwitz or Treblinka to remain homes of the burial? Do we just simply remember the life that once lived? Or will we lovingly embrace not only the passing, the deaths, but also the lives, the dreams and the passions of the 6 million? Will we merely create beautiful and heart-wrenching memorials and museums for dead Jews? Or will we bring them back to life through our own? Will we publish documentaries about the world that was, has been reduced to ashes? Or will we create their majestic and sacred world in our own? So, on my father's yahrzeit, I'm reminded that I'm named after his father, whose life was taken away by the Nazis, Yamach Shemam. And of course, reminding me of what life is really all about. We ourselves decide where our loved ones are laid to rest. If it's simply the loss of their physical body, it's a house of graves. If we only remember the wonderful neshama, the soul that lives on, it's an eternal home. But if we have the courage to say, I'd like to live on, and to become a home for the living, courage to put a smile on those of our ancestors who sacrificed so much for the people of Israel in our own lives, then the person was laid in the house of life, Beis HaChaim, because that individual lives on.